thank you for watching. Well, it's been 25 years since the Air Ontario crash in Dryden. While ceremonies were held at the site crash on the 15th and 20th anniversaries, the 25th anniversary on March 10th did not see a memorial service. John Thompson reports.
A moment of silence in Dryden City Council chambers to remember the 24 people who lost their lives and the 45 people who survived the Air Ontario crash that caught national attention a quarter of a century ago. But this year, the memorial where ceremonies have been held in the past had almost no attention at all. At 10 minutes after noon, the flight's takeoff time in 1989, retired volunteer firefighter Raymond Godfrey was alone in paying his respects.
Well, it was difficult to see the bodies in the plane still sitting there, so that really catches you. Come back every 5 years just to pay the respects to the people that lost their lives. For me, it was difficult, but I've survived.
Ken Kurtz was a volunteer fire captain on site the day of the crash. He's now the Dryden fire chief. He says the town's ongoing financial crisis has kept everyone too busy to hold a community-wide observance.
We've got a lot going on in the city, so it makes it pretty tough to do that. And I think from our perspective, we were able to meet with all our firefighters last Wednesday because it was training night for both our fire halls, and we were able to bring everybody together and do about a 15-minute review of it, and it brought back a lot of memories. So we each do our own remembering, and it's something that's pretty hard to forget about, that's for sure.
Dryden Mayor Craig Nuttall was in a meeting at the airport where he co-chaired the board when the flight went down.
It was a very sad day in Dryden. I still remember that a lot of businesses just closed because it was devastating to us. And I always remember this one person that said to me, you know, that airfield's unsafe. And I looked at him and I said, you look like an intelligent person. How did you get here? And he flew in. So we have a very safe airport. But the problem was de-icing.
That problem led to a Winnipeg-based commission that changed air travel in Canada forever.
Commission of Inquiry reports after that were amazing, changing history in all of aviation, in airline safety and how planes are de-iced, where they're de-iced, stuff like that. The ability for people to report things to pilots when they see things on wings and contaminants, and there is methods now for you to, as a passenger, to report it, and they will have to de-ice.
Godfrey says it might be the last time he visits the memorial. The changes have been made, the wounds have turned to scars, and Dryden is letting the disaster drift into history. John Thompson, TBT News.
2 weeks into a state of emergency due to a rash of residential fires, another home has burned down on the Mishkogaming First Nation. The 10-year-old trailer that was home to a pair of families burned to the ground at 3 o'clock Thursday morning. No one was injured, and Anishinaabe police are investigating the cause. Over the past 3 months, 6 homes have burned, claiming the lives of 12 members of the community just south of Pickle Lake. Chief Connie Gray McKay is calling for every home to undergo risk assessment. She's organizing fire drills and escape training for children. The First Nation lacks indoor heated space for firefighting equipment, which has frozen over the winter. The reserve has been living under a housing crisis that has been mounting for more than a decade. 50 municipalities and First Nations are engaged in a process to bury Canada's nuclear waste, but MP Bruce Heyer believes the decision should involve a wider range of voices. The Green Party member for Thunder Bay Superior North will launch a campaign next week to hear regional opinions on nuclear power and burying nuclear waste in northwestern Ontario. Heyer will hold open houses in Terrace Bay, Marathon, and Nippigan from Wednesday to Friday. Because of the gap in Ontario's transmission corridor near Wawa, northern and southern Ontario are on 2 independent energy grids. None of the energy generated from nuclear power passes that point to the northwest. Heyer points out that this region is being asked to bury waste, which it has nothing to do with.
I myself am opposed to building any more nuclear power plants or expanding the ones we have now. But we already have 50,000 metric tons in southern Ontario that we have to do something with. So the question is, should that waste stay in southern Ontario where it created electricity and jobs, or should it be shipped off to northwestern Ontario, which is politically and economically weak in their eyes?
Along with Scriber and Ignace, the Nuclear Waste Management Organization has identified several other potential sites for further study. Nippigan, Manitouwadge, White River, and Hornpain are also under consideration. The citizens of Marathon have delivered a cool message to Queen's Park as tempers heat up over local energy bills. Marathon Mayor Rick Dumas hand-delivered 1,400 signatures to Minister of Energy Bob Chiarelli, expressing displeasure with Ontario's plan to increase hydro rates by nearly a third over the next 3 to 4 years. The petition amounts to 1 in every 3 people in the community signing in protest. Although there is a 10% rebate for Northerners and programs in place to provide $200 rebates for low-income families, Dumas says none of that impacts the cost of energy.
Their plan is to increase hydro costs over the next 3 to 4 years by 30%. That's the plan. Now, there is some opportunities in there to reduce some energy costs for industry and to promote and to strengthen the industry. We're fully supportive of that. Our local mine here receives some of those benefits as well. But the homeowner is the one who's got to pay the bill. And what I argued about the fact that we want to continue to keep people in our community, aging at home. And how do we continue to focus on aging in the community and aging at home when people cannot afford to stay in their homes?
Dumas says he presented bills to the minister showing seniors in Marathon are paying in excess of $1,000 a month.
I brought bills down and I presented to the minister. Homeowners, 1 month, $1,300. How do you sustain that? How do you sustain that? How do you sustain an 82-year-old individual living in an apartment with no hot water tank and no washer and dryer, paying $350 a month on a fixed income? How do you sustain that? You can't keep them in your home. You can't keep them in a facility like that. So you have to address the problem.
Ontario Power Generation described the 30% increase back in November as a way to ensure the province's obligations for used nuclear fuel management and decommissioning are met. Well, Premier Gold Mines Limited has filed a preliminary economic assessment study for 2 mines in Greenstone. It estimates average annual gold production at 253,000 ounces at the Hard Rock project in Geraldton and over 48,000 ounces at the Brookbank project near Beardmore. Well, healthcare providers in Thunder Bay have come up with a plan they believe will address the gridlock problems at their Thunder Bay Regional Health Sciences Centre. On Friday, the Minister of Health gave her stamp of approval in the form of a $14 million check. The funding will help open up 53 beds in the community, including long-term care beds at the LPH. Dennis Ward has more on how the money will be used.
And that present is $14 million.
Not a bad gift to receive on your 10th birthday, but it's one many would say is desperately needed at this time. The regional hospital is frequently in gridlock with few available beds. It is hoped this plan will help address the overcapacity by opening up 53 new beds in facilities throughout the city.
Status quo is not okay, so they came together with a plan, they developed a plan, and today I'm very proud to say that we're implementing that plan. I want to say this is the beginning. This is a short-term plan. There is more that will need to be done down the road, but this will significantly reduce pressures in the hospital by providing care outside the hospital.
26 of those new beds will be created at the Lakehead Psychiatric Hospital. At one time, moving long-term care patients into the facility was deemed inappropriate, but apparently a closer look at the LPH showed care could be provided there in the short term. St. Joseph's Care Group CEO Tracy Buckler says there's a long waiting list for long-term care beds, and they just don't exist right now.
We actually have a unit that would be available to open quite easily for 26 clients to be there. It's, again, a temporary solution. It's not ideal. The ideal solution would certainly be to have sufficient long-term care bed capacity.
A few weeks ago, the regional hospital was running a deficit of more than $2 million. Regional Vice President Dr. Stuart Kennedy believes the books will be close to balanced with the help of this cash infusion. He also feels the new investments will address gridlock.
But you know, in healthcare, you get ups and downs. You get sort of an epidemic with flu. You got the elderly population. So it's going to go a long way to help alleviate some of the challenges we have with gridlock. Is it going to cure it? I'm not sure yet.
Included in the minister's announcement was more than $4 million to provide home care for an additional 500 seniors in Thunder Bay. There was also funding announced to help recruit 24 full-time and temporary emergency room doctors. Dennis Ward, TBT News.
After the break, we head to Terrace Bay, where a housing boom is going prefab and new technology could hold promise for a new mill. Stay with us. Area pulp mills could see significant economic and operational gains if a new technology being tested proves to be successful. And some of those tests will take place at the mill in Terrace Bay. The Thunder Bay-based Centre for Research and Innovation in the Bioeconomy, or CRIBE, is helping to fund the project. CRIBE is providing $1.3 million to Greenfield Specialty Alcohols for the project. The company will take its patent-pending equipment used to extract and recover clean sugars and apply it in a pulp and paper mill demonstration. CRIBE CEO Lauren Morrow says AV Terrace Bay is a natural fit for tests because the mill is being converted into a dissolving pulp operation. He also adds the test could create higher value products.
You'll see it used in glues, you'll see it used in alcohols, and there's a lot of interest downstream from bio-based chemistry people who want to take and make their downstream products with something that's bio-based.
The equipment is currently being purchased and expected to be installed at the mill within the next year. Demand for housing in Terrace Bay has been slowly building, but prospective residential homeowners are getting a quick fix in the town's next stage of development. Phil Darlington explains.
Terrace Bay has laid out ambitious plans to address the town's housing shortage, but for aspiring homeowners, that process is taking a leap forward. Sean Irwin is Terrace Bay's Special Projects Coordinator. He says the town doesn't have the resources to lead the development and is counting on the motivation of residents to get things moving on a house-by-house basis.
The municipality doesn't have the capability to build their own homes. We're a small town, we just can't do a subdivision. We've been pretty vocal about that. So we'd have to work with a developer to do it. They would come in, they would look at lots, people would buy lots, it'd be the standard one from there.
The high end of the town's housing market is about $200,000, with the average home selling for about half of that value. Irwin says prefab homes are a perfect fit to suit the unique combination of young workers and retirees that are growing Terrace Bay today.
We've had a lot of retirees move to Terrace Bay that have sold their $500,000 house in Alberta, bought something similar for $100,000, and they live off the rest. We've seen a lot of that. That's what is driving our housing demand right now, is that now we have all these jobs at our mill and all the homes have been filled with the retirees that we just don't have the homes.
Bill Bolton leads the Thunder Bay-based company that Terrace Bay has recruited to direct the first wave of housing. From order to completion, that process takes less than 2 months.
The town has some lots available at very reasonable prices, I must say, and the town is a beautiful town. It's one of the nicest ones along this whole shore. And the workers that are coming to the new mill under the new ownership need places as well, and there's not much available here. So this is an opportunity to build and develop the community in a positive manner.
2 years into planning, the next stage will be working towards developing parts of the 26 kilometers of waterfront property that is still being bid upon for purchase. While some people are getting new addresses in a hurry, Terrace Bay's larger vision is still in waiting. Phil Darlington, TPT News.
As Marathon observes the 5-year mark since its pulp mill shut down, its former owners have announced demolition plans. Despite the town's efforts to seek some sort of economic activity at the mill, Tembec intends to tear down the majority of buildings on the site of one of the smallest mills in North America. Marathon Mayor Rick Dumas says some of the property's facilities can still be utilized, but he would not provide further details for fear of jeopardizing any potential deal. Dumas concedes that many other parts of the mill are in ill repair considering the 5 years that have passed since it shut down. The Northwest was awash in provincial infrastructure funding announcements this week related to water treatment. Water towers will be repaired in Geraldton and Long Lac at a cost of $700,000. Red Lake and Balmertown sewage and water systems will get an $800,000 renewal upgrade. Ignace, Emo, Watakokan, Thunder Bay, and Rainy River will all benefit from $2 million investments, while Nipigon and Reddick will each receive over $350,000. Well, charges have been laid in a Kenora car collision. We'll tell you about that, plus this week's roundup on guns and bears when we return. Well, more charges have now been laid against a Manitoba man in connection with a highway crash near Kenora, which was caught on a dash cam video. Sioux Lookout resident Ralph Ireland and his wife were traveling along Highway 17 on March 1st when a pickup truck hauling a trailer suddenly pulled out in front of them. Fortunately, none of the occupants suffered any serious injuries. Kenora OPP had originally charged the 36-year-old man with failing to yield, but a few days later, Ireland retrieved the video from his dash cam and sent it to police. He also posted it online, and the images appeared to show the other driver talking on a cell phone. Kenora OPP continued their investigation and have now laid distracted driving charges against the man. The video, which quickly went viral, has now been viewed more than 200,000 times. A Greenstone outfitter is echoing recent calls from Sunset Country Travel Association that the province's spring bear hunt pilot project surrounding urban centers will be bad for rural business. John Espinola owns the Lower Twin Lakes Lodge outside of Nakina and represents bear management on the Geraldton Area Natural Resources Advisory Committee. He says the bear hunt scheduled for areas surrounding Northern Ontario's 5 largest municipalities will urbanize his business, which is mostly made up of resident hunters, because most hunters would prefer to hunt bear in the spring and moose, deer, or waterfowl in the fall.
Definitely going to hurt that small communities huge. So being as an outfitter, it hasn't even started and it's affected me already. This past sportsman show I did in Toronto, that was one of the big questions. Do you have the spring bear hunt? And I have to say no. So not only I don't get a spring bear hunt, but what's happening is I'm losing my fall-time bear hunt because fall-time hunters now are going to jump on the spring bear hunt.
The municipality of Greenstone supported his request to speak in favor of returning to a full spring bear hunt across the region. Thousands of firearm owners in Ontario and Canada are upset with the RCMP's decision to classify a pair of popular rifles as prohibited. For roughly a decade, Canadians have been able to purchase them, but the new classification will essentially turn owners of the rifles into lawbreakers. Prior to the change, the Swiss Arms Green Carbine and CZ-858 variant rifles were considered unrestricted long guns and treated the same as hunting rifles and shotguns. There are approximately 15,000 rifles and their variants across Canada, including some in northwestern Ontario. The Harper government has suggested returning the firearms for a refund, but Christian Kuznak of the GMK shooting range in Thunder Bay says dealers are unlikely to offer a refund, as that could add up to millions for the industry.
Bad. Functionally, there's nothing different between them and any other hunting rifle that's available. It's just that overall, aesthetics are different, and it makes it so that you can make the public believe that it's evil because it looks that way. And the truth of the matter is that it's just a semi-automatic rifle. It's the same as any hunting rifle. We had it set up at the Murillo Gun Show this past weekend. We were handing out form letters to be sent to Prime Minister Harper, Safety Minister Stephen Blaney, and then our local MPs Rafferty and Heyer.
The government has put an amnesty in place for 5 years, giving owners of those firearms time to turn them into police. Kuznak says that there is no way of modifying the rifles to make them legal. The Thunder Bay chapter of Walking with Our Sisters is getting ready to host a traveling art show devoted to missing and murdered Aboriginal women. Local members held a gathering this past week to connect with elders and the community as they move forward with planning the 2014 Walking with Our Sisters Memorial Art Exhibition this fall. The traveling art exhibit features more than 1,700 moccasins, which represent the victims. Committee member Leanna Sigsworth says because it's all volunteer run, they need help from the community to make it a success. Sigsworth adds the exhibit will unite the community and raise awareness about violence against Aboriginal women.
It's an open invitation to heal, both for the Indigenous community and within the Indigenous community, but also within the mainstream non-Native community as well. It's gonna be a bridge that hopefully will open up more conversations and more public awareness and saying, hey, like, how can we stop this? Like, everyone's life is valued.
Raising awareness through the Walking with Our Sisters and the VAMPs coming here. I think, that's going to add to the awareness that needs to be heard.
This will be the first time the Walking with Our Sisters exhibit will be showcased in the region. The Thunder Bay Art Gallery will host the exhibition this fall from September 18th until October 9th. Well, the last 100 Canadian troops will be back on home soil from Afghanistan soon. The Canadian forces have finished up a 3-year training mission, lowering the flag outside NATO headquarters in Kabul. Thunder Bay resident Jeff Abthorpe completed a 7-month tour in Afghanistan himself as a combat team commander. He says the Canadian government completed the goals it set out to achieve by transitioning out of combat into training missions for the past 3 years and committing to get our troops home this year. He says we have lived up to our reputation as Canadians.
I think it's a wonderful benchmark for bringing closure to 12 years of operations in Afghanistan. Since 2001, with Colonel Strogan's battle group that deployed in support of the American operations there, right through to all the missions that we've had, whether they be the combat missions or the capacity building missions where we've been training the Afghan soldiers how to provide security to their own country. I think we needed this closure. The ceremony marked overseas was fairly low key, but it does mark an end to a wonderful contribution for Canada.
Abthorpe says while this day does offer closure for many soldiers, a lot of them still have physical and mental rehabilitation to go through before they can put Afghanistan behind them. Well, Ontario's Liberal government will introduce legislation this week to freeze the pay of members of the provincial parliament for another 5 years. The Wynne government will introduce the bill to avoid an automatic pay increase for MPPs of 5 to 6% that would kick in April 1st. Government sources say the bill will extend the pay freeze, which was first imposed in 2009 to 19, and even then MPPs would only get a raise if the budget was balanced. The Liberals face an $11.7 billion deficit and say freezing the pay of politicians and their non-unionized political staff is the government's way of leading by example. Ontario MPPs are supposed to make 75% of what members of Parliament make, but have been capped at $116,500 a year for the past 5 years. Thank you for watching this edition of Northwest Newsweek. We'll see you again next time.